The whispers began before the music did. In the golden daylight spilling through the grand glass windows, beneath chandeliers that sparkled like frozen stars, people leaned toward one another, hiding smirks behind manicured hands. Their eyes drifted toward the groom standing alone near the altar, his suit simple, his posture steady but heavy with years of silent struggle. They called him a nobody. Not loudly, not boldly, but enough for the words to sting like invisible cuts. They saw only what they wanted to see, a single father with no family name, no fortune, no legacy worth mentioning. They had no idea who he truly was, or who was about to walk through those doors. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of those who rise without support, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Tales, because stories like this deserve to be felt by the world. Ayan Malik stood still, his fingers lightly brushing the edge of the ring in his pocket, grounding himself in something real. The hall was filled with wealth, elegance, and judgment. He could feel it pressing against him like an invisible weight. Every polished shoe, every expensive laugh, every sideways glance reminded him that he didn't belong here, not in their eyes. But Ayan had never lived his life trying to belong. He had lived to survive. Years earlier, Ayan had walked away from a life most people would have killed to inherit. He had been born into power, into a legacy whispered across nations, but that life came with chains he refused to wear. His father, a man known only in certain circles as the king, ruled over a vast empire built on influence, control, and secrets. Ayan had seen the darkness behind the throne, the manipulation, the cold decisions, the way love was treated as weakness. So he left. Without money, without protection, without even his family name. And when he left, he didn't just lose wealth. He lost everything. Life outside the empire was not kind. It did not care that he once had everything. It tested him, broke him, reshaped him. There were nights he slept on cold floors, days he went hungry, moments he questioned whether he had made the biggest mistake of his life. But then came the one thing that changed everything, his daughter, Meher. She was born in a small clinic with peeling paint and flickering lights, far from the luxury he once knew. Her mother had left shortly after, unable to bear the hardship. And just like that, Ayan became a single father with nothing but determination in his veins. He didn't know how to raise a child. He didn't know how to balance work and sleepless nights. But he learned. Slowly. Painfully. Beautifully. He worked every job he could find. Construction, delivery, cleaning, anything that paid enough to keep Meher fed and warm. He carried bricks by day and carried his daughter by night. He learned to braid her hair, to soothe her fears, to smile even when his world was falling apart. Every sacrifice he made, every drop of sweat, every tear, he gave it all without hesitation. Because she was his reason. Years passed, and the man who once had everything became someone far greater, a man who built himself from nothing. Ayan eventually started a small repair business, fixing broken things, phones, appliances, anything people brought to him. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And slowly, through consistency and quiet resilience, he built a life. Not a perfect one, but a real one. That was when Zara entered his world. She wasn't drawn to wealth or status. She saw something else in Ayan, the quiet strength, the depth behind his eyes, the way he spoke with sincerity, the way he cared for his daughter like she was the center of the universe. Zara came from a well-known family, respected and wealthy, but she never cared for that world. She wanted something real. And in Ayan, she found it. Their love grew slowly, like sunlight creeping into a dark room. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was steady, grounded, and deeply human. But love, especially the kind that defies expectations, rarely goes unchallenged. Zara's family was against the marriage from the beginning. To them, Ayan was a risk, an embarrassment, a man with no background worth mentioning. They couldn't see his journey. They couldn't understand his choices. All they saw was a single father with no name, no wealth, no power. Still, Zara chose him. And now, here he stood on their wedding day, surrounded by people who silently judged him, who believed he wasn't worthy of the woman he loved. Ayan could feel their doubt like a storm building around him, but he remained calm. Because he had faced worse. He had survived worse. The ceremony was about to begin when the doors at the far end of the hall opened. At first, no one noticed. But then came the shift, a subtle change in the air, like the moment before thunder breaks. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. And then silence fell. A man walked in. He wasn't dressed in excessive luxury, yet everything about him commanded attention. His presence was powerful, undeniable. The kind of presence that didn't need to announce itself, it simply existed, and the world adjusted around it. Behind him followed a small group, equally composed, equally silent. The whispers returned, but this time they carried confusion instead of mockery. Ayan felt it before he saw it. Something deep within him stirred, a memory, a recognition he had buried years ago. Slowly, he turned. And there he was. His father. The man he had walked away from. The man who ruled from the shadows. The man people feared but rarely saw. The king. The room shifted again, but this time it wasn't subtle. It was undeniable. People who had moments ago been whispering insults now stood frozen, their expressions changing from arrogance to disbelief. Some recognized him instantly. Others felt the weight of his presence without knowing why. Ayan's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the collision of past and present. He had not expected this. Not today. Not here. The king walked forward slowly, his gaze fixed on his son. There was no anger in his eyes, no cold authority, only something far more unexpected. Pride. Years ago, Ayan had rejected everything his father stood for. He had chosen a path that seemed foolish to many. But standing there now, as a man who had built his life from nothing, who had raised a child with love and dignity, who had earned every step forward, he was no longer the boy who walked away. He was someone greater. The king stopped just a few steps away. The silence in the hall was so complete it felt almost unreal. Every person in that room was watching, waiting, realizing that the man they had called a nobody was anything but. Ayan didn't bow. He didn't step back. He stood his ground, his eyes steady, his shoulders strong. And in that moment, without a single word spoken, everything changed. Because respect is not inherited. It is earned. The ceremony continued, but now the energy had shifted completely. The same people who had judged him now looked at him with awe, with confusion, with a quiet shame they tried to hide. They didn't understand his story, but they understood one thing clearly: he was not who they thought he was. But Ayan didn't care about their realization. He wasn't there to prove them wrong. He was there to begin a new chapter of his life, with Zara, with Meher, with the family he had chosen and built with his own hands. As the vows were exchanged, the sunlight seemed warmer, the air lighter. Meher watched from the front row, her small face glowing with happiness, her eyes filled with pride for the father who had never let her down. Zara held Ayan's hands, not as someone marrying beneath her status, but as someone standing beside an equal. And somewhere in the crowd, the king watched silently, understanding something he had never fully grasped before, that true power was not in control, but in love. Not in wealth, but in sacrifice. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that true worth comes from within and not from what the world sees, take a moment to like, share, and comment. Your support helps stories like this reach others who need them. And before we end,